read off a few more donations while we pop all these balloons. We have $25 from Anonymous. Anime is love. Anime is a warrior of light. $10 from Ack Lauren. Anime is this year's Demon Chocobo, so we must make it happen. It's what our Lord and Savior would want. I have to say I'd agree. $75 from Blue. If anime gets in at 150 total, know that I did this alone and have no regrets. Just to let everyone know, this is anime. This is not anime. We only wish that. This is RPG Limit Break 2018, sponsored by Twitch. RPG Limit Break 2018 is coming you straight from Salt Lake City, Utah. We are raising money for NAMI, the National Alliance on Mental Illness, which was formed in 1979 as grassroots advocacy organization by a group of parents whose children suffered with serious mental illnesses, and NAMI have maintained that focus to this day. I'm proud to report that the balloons have been taken care of.
A friendly reminder, this is RPG Limit Break 2018 coming to you from Salt Lake City, Utah. We are currently in the process of setting up the next run, so if you please be patient, we'll get that started in just a moment. Keep those donations coming in. We have some incredible bid wars coming up, so you'll absolutely have to check those out. And we do have some amazing donations coming in. We have $24 from Indy. Good luck to Poorscythe. Don't get petrified. Money goes towards Cruel as a name because he is the champion of Final Fantasy 1. Thank you so much, Indy. We have another $50 from Indy as well. Good luck to Poorscythe, Warmech, Riot. And right away, we're going to get started.
Hi everyone, I'm Poorscythe, here with FF1, 20% with a bonus. We're just going to get set up for this, but we're going to need the names for the characters. While we're waiting though, I guess my couch can introduce themselves.
I am Couch 23. My name is Ian Didwickpeck.
And I'm Gyre.
Alrighty, you ready for those names, Scythe?
Give me 1 second. Can you tell me the 4 names and I'll just assign them as I want?
Yeah, Astos is the first one.
All right, Bringer of Death will be the white mage in this run. Next one.
Cruel.
We'll be spending some time on the dirt. Okay.
The next one is Dan.
I'll go with a thief for that one. And the last one?
And the final one is Bonsai.
That's perfect. Oops. Did I change? And a mega, sorry. Okay.
There's a reason he's got a specific order for the characters, because we'll be doing a glitch throughout this run called the equipment glitch. And that's going to require that certain characters are adjacent to other characters in order to be able to pull off. And we'll talk a little bit more about the equipment glitch once the run gets underway here. You'll see it almost immediately from the beginning.
No, that's not it.
That's Cruel.
Cruel. I don't know why I'm looking at the screen when the monitor's right in front of me. Go ahead with that. All right. Should be all set. So, on 3, 2, 1, and go.
All right, this is the PSP version of Final Fantasy for people that haven't seen it before, and it will be extremely different from every other version of the game. And as I mentioned earlier, the big thing that's going to be different is the equipment glitch, which we're going to start off with almost immediately. You're going to see him make some stuff out of thin air. And the way this works is that if you change menus at the same time as you're trying to equip something, you can switch back and forth between what the game's list of weapons and armor are. So let's say you're on the weapon menu. It'll check and say, here's the list of weapons you can equip. Now you're suddenly on the armor screen. It says, okay, I know you can equip ID number 3 or ID number 75. It'll turn that into the corresponding piece of armor. And even if you're not supposed to be able to put that in that slot, not going to have that item, it'll magically appear there. And so you're going to see some really weird things happen as a result. This is just the first time we use it. You'll see it almost every item that you pick up is because you want to glitch that into something else that's going to be more valuable. And for the PSP version, there is all kinds of super equipment for the bonus dungeons that were PSP exclusive. So you're going to have stuff that's way stronger than the base game.
There's about 10 glitches throughout the entire run. So you'll see them at various points. The goal of them is to get gear with bonus agility and bonus intelligence to raise my character's chances of running away from battle or from acting earlier in the turn order.
And right at the start, he got Knight's Armor, which is the steel armor that normally gets sold in Melmond. So everybody's going to take 1 damage from all the attacks, and he'll be able to sell that later for lots and lots of money. So no real grinding at all for money at all in this part of the game.
Yeah, so if any of you are looking at the estimate and thinking that it looks incorrect or that you're wondering why I'm using a thief, just understand that it's not a mistake, even though it may look like one. Because if you're used to the thief in the NES version, it's not very effective.
And the thief is in the PSP version actually pretty good, because we're gonna use the equipment glitch to get an item called the Barbarian Sword later in the run. And this item you usually get only if you defeat the super boss Chronodia in the super dungeon, the Labyrinth of Time, in the strongest version. And since we're gonna glitch it, we can get it very early in the run and get super overpowered. And yeah, with that, the ninja gets super useful in this version.
And what he just picked up there, the leather cap at the start, that turns into the Judgment Staff, which casts Nuke or Flare. So he's going to just use it to hit him with the light bulbs for right now, but that'll be the primary way that he clears a lot of encounters out, is using the Flare spell. It's a little bit slower, though, than most other spell animations, so once he's got more appropriate and has enough intelligence in his characters, they'll be switching to things like Fyra and Thundara instead.
So we've rescued Sarah, and have this little cutscene plays out, and then she'll take us right back to the castle. And as thanks for rescuing her from the clutches of Garland, the king will rebuild the bridge that will let us proceed to the next part of the story. And we'll see a little cutscene play out where that gets built. So this would be a wonderful time for donations.
Absolutely. We have $20 from Shinbreaker7. He says, "Hey, Poorscythe, so glad to see you representing the community here at Limit Break. I'm so excited to finally see the game make a major marathon, especially one representing such a worthy charity. I'm sorry I couldn't be there, but I know you're going to kill it. Good luck with Lich."
Thanks, Shin.
Thank you so much, Shinbreaker7. Atlas Jackson comes in with $10, calling all cow punchers, bean slingers, and snake oilers. If we're headed to West of Loathing, then we're doing it in style, and that means silly walks.
If you look very carefully, you notice in the bottom left here, this one NPC is only working about half as hard as the others, for whatever reason.
You know, I think it's because he maybe gets paid half as much.
It could be. Well, speaking of getting paid, though, I mean, in terms of money on this route, there's not much that I need, because with the equipment glitch and letting me duplicate items out of thin air, I can essentially sell them for very quickly for all the money I'm going to need throughout the course of the run. So I don't need a detour to pick up any chests or anything like that.
Yeah, we already have the Knight's Armor, and spoiler, we're gonna sell it later in the run. And these Knight's Armor sell for, I believe, 18,000 per piece.
Yeah, which is half of what you can buy them for, which I think is 36,000 in Melmond. We won't see Melmond for about 20 minutes. And you're probably wondering, 20 minutes? But yeah, this run goes very, very fast, which is one of the reasons I really like this run, because it lets me just keep running it over and over again. But this is one of the things I don't like about the run, is getting all these encounters.
This is actually much lower than the encounter rate for most other versions of the game, so it will be pretty nice through there. Especially like Gulg Volcano, you can actually sometimes get a 0 encounter volcano, which would just never happen on anything else.
Yeah, so these forest tiles actually have a very high encounter rate, but there's a huge massive forest that I can't really get across without just blazing right through it, so I have to just take what I am given at this point and run with it. And for the most part, that's going to be how this goes throughout the run. There's no encounter manipulation in this version. There's no resetting the console. I can soft reset and I can save at any time if I just get a really unfortunate thing or if I happen to die. I'm not trying to die in this case, but it may happen.
So very soon we're coming to the next city, and you notice that we can't really go anywhere. So we want to try to get a ship. And yeah, how we get that ship? We're gonna beat a bunch of pirates to, well, steal their ship, if you want to call it. And you see a second purpose of the Judgment Staff, because you can also use items as like magic things. And the Judgment Staff calls or casts spell Flare, which is a super strong spell, which is, I believe, level 8?
The 8th tier spell for black magic.
And as you can see, the Judgment Staff kills all these pirates immediately, makes the fight very, very quickly, and gives us the ship.
He also got a leather shield drop, which is going to save him a little bit of time for having to buy that leather shield at the armor shop down to the south.
Yeah, it definitely looks like the plunderers have been plundered.
So yeah, I was looking carefully at the combat messages at the end of that fight just to see if a leather shield would drop. Because that's something that can happen in this version of the game. In the GBA version of the game is some enemies have been assigned some items that can be dropped in combat. It's not the case in the NES or the PS1 versions of the game. So if any of the pirates happen to drop a leather shield, I can use that to glitch in another weapon known as the Mage's Staff, which can cast Fire later on. But I won't be glitching it at this point in time.
And for speedrunning purposes, if you don't get the drop, it's not the end of the world. It's about 15 or 20 seconds to go and pick it up in Provoca.
So I'm just doing a quick duck into Elfheim over here to reset the encounter rate. The threat rises with every step that I take, but if I enter it or exit a town or dungeon or change floors, it goes back down to the lowest level. So 2 advantages of that is ducking in there and then walking out saves me 2 steps of movement on the overworld, as well as resetting the encounter threat to the lowest level. So that should theoretically lower my chances of getting into an encounter, but it doesn't always stop it that way. You can still very easily walk 2 steps and get an encounter right afterwards.
And that threat style way of getting encounters was actually not in the earlier Final Fantasies. Interestingly though, that was in most of the Dragon Quests. So when you see Dragon Quest 1 and 3 that are going to be later in the marathon, Dragon Quest 3 especially is going to use that same mechanic of resetting your threat level in order to be able to reduce the number of encounters you have while traveling.
So speaking of encounters, you'll notice him parking the ship in a very specific location. He's not going to float it all the way up to the end of the dock. He's going to walk along the edge of the dock because those are actually no threat level tiles. So
if you're not familiar with FF1, boats can only be parked at docks or the entrance to the river if I also happen to have a canoe. So, I mean, I can't land the ship anywhere I want. It has to be parked in specific locations. Oops.
All right, here we go, Marsh Cave. Marsh Cave, for most people playing casually, is probably the first time the difficulty spikes a little bit here. But we're going to have no problem whatsoever. Combined with the lower encounter rate, this is one of the faster dungeons. I also feel like this dungeon in particular has a lower encounter rate than most other dungeons in the game by far.
Yeah, I believe it's the lowest encounter rate. So I don't need to kill anything at this point. I'm just going to be going into and out of fights as quickly as possible, with the exception of the fight in this room. So as soon as I step in the tile in front of that treasure chest, I will trigger an encounter automatically with Pisco Demons. Anywhere from 2 to 4 of them can spawn. And since I didn't have to change my commands and I turned the memory cursor on at the very beginning of the run, I can basically just hold X to repeat my commands from the last combat. So over the course of the entire run, I'm going to be trying to keep a mental track of which commands I issued in the most recent battle that I had to fight, so I can just adjust accordingly.
These Pisco Demons are also the first unrunnable encounter, so we're gonna see later in the run a bunch of encounters that you can't run away from, that we have to kill. And those Pisco Demons are one of the first ones. And what we usually do is that if you have more than 3 unrunnables, you usually use a Judgment Staff or anything else that can kill all the monsters at one time. If you have less than 3, you can just use the Barbarian Sword because it's faster. If you have exactly 3, it doesn't really matter since the time you need to kill them is about the same length.
And we don't have the Barbarian Sword yet. We're going to get that pretty soon. Right now, the Judgment Staff is what they have. Yeah. And it's an okay melee weapon, better than most weapons in the game. But you'll really see how much damage the Barbarian Sword can do.
So here's an ambush. So every enemy here is going to get a free attack on my guys, and if I get another character paralyzed, I'm just going to take a safety option to kill this group to make sure they don't paralyze my entire group. If everyone gets paralyzed, the enemies just can take round after round of free attacks until somebody breaks out of it or everybody dies, and I don't want to wait around for that.
And then other than safety, he's trying to use that Judgment Staff as little as possible. Those spell animations much slower than most of your regular attacks we're just trying to run. So every time you flare, you're losing a couple of seconds, but you really can't do much about it for the encounters that you do get in the game.
So here's the opposite of the ambush, the preemptive. So I get to flee automatically on my first attempt, and I don't have to fight the enemies. I can optionally fight them if I want, but there will probably only be one instance where I see that, maybe two instances later on in the run. Generally, in a normal fight like this, I just hold LNR to issue an automatic fleeting command to everyone. And additionally, also new to this PSP version is a defend command, which wasn't in any of the other versions. So if I want to pass a turn or I don't want to issue any worthwhile command to my characters, I can just tell them to defend instead, and they supposedly also reduces damage, but I have yet to test that and really confirm that.
It reduces damage by 1/2, and it's the only way you can get down to a 0 damage attack is by defending when it would have done 1.
So here we have the death or the fight against all fights, Astos versus Astos.
Well, there's Dan taking a nap.
Yeah, and that's Dan's MO. So Astos has 420 HP in this one. The two mages will usually combine for at least 330 damage. If the white mage rolls like over 200, that will instantly end the fight. Additionally, if the warrior and thief survive, they can contribute some melee damage. They usually only need to add about 80 damage to finish off the fight. So Dan's going to be a little disadvantaged in his experience because he died during that fight. But I'm pretty much going to resurrect him instantly, but I'm not going to full heal him. So perhaps one of you guys can explain why I don't want to do that right off the bat.
Yeah, the reason why we don't full heal the warrior and the thief at this point, later in the run we're gonna have a little grind session where we wanna have the thief and the warrior at 70 HP max, since in that fight, if they have less HP, they will die a little bit easier. So we can start the grind for our black mage and white mage faster.
For people not familiar with Final Fantasy, experience is split equally among all living characters. So killing characters off is a way that you level up the remaining characters more quickly. In this case, the black mage and the white mage are the most important for levels at that point in the game.
I'm also carefully watching over the course of this run the maximum HP of my thief and black mage specifically. If they happen to have a lower total than I'm looking for, I may have to just take a safety in the final fight, and at certain locations it may also impact it. I hear the black mage has gotten over 100 HP, which means he's gotten a very nice amount for the early game, and I shouldn't have to worry about him during the grind session. Now I duck in here to get some gold needles as a safety against petrification. I don't want to run this run without them. I can, and I have completed many runs without them, but I will not do that here and risk everything. I do have the option to save anywhere in this version as well, which is a very nice convenience feature. So aside from the many differences of this version, there's obviously the improved graphics and audio, the retranslation of a lot of things. There's new consumable items like Ethers and Phoenix Downs have been added to the shops, making it unnecessary to really use tents or cottages in this run. Enemies can drop items. The defend command has been added. I'm going to try to run from this one. I'm going to give this one. These Sahagins can be somewhat difficult to flee from, so I'm going to take one opportunity to try to flee from them and see if I get lucky. And if not, I'm going to kill them on the next run. They're not particularly dangerous to me, though. Oh, except I lied. We'll do another one.
The feeling he's doing right now is to advance a quest sequence, eventually getting the Mystic Key, then the Dynamite to unblock the world. So this is probably a good time for some donations. It'd be nice to get some plugs in for an incentive that we have at the end of the run for some optional bosses.
Yeah, absolutely. We do, in fact, have a wonderful incentive for some in-game bosses. You actually get to choose, I believe, the Hellfire Chasm boss choice. In the lead currently is Cognazo and Barbaricia, but the others are close behind, so make sure you guys get those incentives in.
We'll be cutting that incentive off right around the time that we're at Tiamat. So for this run, that'll be probably about, let's say around an hour and 20 in.
So if you don't know what Hellfire Chasm is, it's one of the bonus dungeons that was added originally in the GBA version of the game. It unlocks when I defeat Marilith And anytime after Merilith, I can basically go into that dungeon and take on the bosses that are included there, which are from FF4. So it's a 10-floor dungeon. On the 5th floor, I have an option between Canyazo and Scarmiglione, and on the 10th floor, I have an option between Barbaricia and Rubicante. So, which is why the choices are listed as such. But I'm going to be fighting them in the bonus dungeon just before I get to Cass.
One thing about the RNG in this game, there's not only RNG in terms of the encounters or the character stats, there are also NPCs that can block your way. We just passed Materia's Cave, and if it happened to a few runners before that they actually tried to walk out of this cave and got stuck by a broomstick right in front of the cave, right in front of the door. And there will be a few places where those NPCs can block our way. So we really hope that their RNG is nice to us today, or rather to Poorscythe.
Well, I also opted to kill that shark there, as they can be somewhat problematic to run from, similar to the Sahagins we saw earlier. And a single shark doesn't take long to just smack with the Judgment Staff.
A lot of aquatic creatures early on have really good agility, which is what this version of the game uses for an opposed run check. And that will continue until we get some agility boosting items. You wouldn't have in the other versions of the game anything that changes your stats based on what you equip, but PSP, a lot of the bonus items will give you, plus agility or plus strength, and we're going to really stack up those agility items to make our characters very, very fast here, so they can outspeed all the enemies and also run away.
Which is actually happening very, very soon. Until now we have the Mystic Key, so Poorscythe is leaving the castle and re-entering it, so he can get a chest behind the castle with a Mithril Hammer to equip the Thief's Armlet on all of the slots except for the shield slot. Reason for that is that sometimes if one of the characters is blocking an attack and that item the character is blocking with doesn't have an animation, the game can actually soft block. So we don't equip any of the items on the shield slot. There will be one exception, which will be the ribbon. That item actually has an animation, so we can just easily equip it on the shield slot without soft blocking the game.
I may also put a Lordly Robe on there later. It's another bonus item that you're probably not familiar with. But to answer why I exited the castle and re-enter, it's actually quicker than walking all the way back to the start and then going around the outside of the castle to get to that treasure room there. I'm going to detour here and pick up a Mithril Knife, which I will use for another glitching later. So all these treasure rooms have been opened now that I have the Mystic Key.
I'm going to sneak in with a few donations here if you guys don't mind.
Go ahead.
And we have $100 from Professor Ness. He says, "Is PJ?" Thank you so much, Professor Ness. I appreciate it. We have $10 from Karn Majari. He said, "The balloon extravaganza throughout Dream Drop Distance was incredible. Thanks for the great run." We appreciate it.
So you saw me initially try to attack that before realizing that I had all this bonus agility gear, which makes it easier to run now. So once I have all that gear, I'm basically going to be trying to run from absolutely everything at this point. Because again, I don't need the experience from any of these encounters going on until a very specific grind later on.
I believe the armlets are plus 5 agility each, so
Yeah.
plus 15 in total, which is more or less doubling what he had before.
Oh, absolutely.
About to use the TNT here to blow open the canal, and that means you're going to be coming up on Melmond. I believe you said you're going to give 1 15 puzzle attempt. Is that correct, Poorscythe?
Yeah, once I get out of here and reach the dock from Melmond, I'm going to take one attempt at the 15-tile puzzle in this game and see if I can't score an emergency exit by placing in second place with a time between 30 seconds and a minute. So I'm going to, if I happen to get a 30-second time, or if I get a time that's over 30 seconds in between 1 minute, I finish in second place, and the pool of items I can win for second place includes an emergency exit, which is a consumable item I can pick up and cast. It's pretty basically identical to the White Mage spell Exit, so we'll instantly get me out of a dungeon, and I would use it right after the vampire here to skip backtracking 3 floors in the Cavern of Earth. It's going to cost me 30 seconds to try to get it, but it could save me 1.5 to 2 minutes.
That's a 1 in 6 chance, so we might see it. We're hoping.
And if I don't see that, I may see another helpful item that might come in handy somewhere. But I mean, at the worst case, I've just spent 30 seconds of giving you guys an extra 30 seconds to get some donations in. So, I think the trade-off is worth it. So once again, I just got to go back to the boat here, which again is back at the dock that was up here. And then I got to sail through the little canal I just opened up to get over to Melmond. And that is where the fun's going to begin for this run.
Got a couple more donations here for you guys, if you don't mind.
Sure.
Yeah, we have $50 from Sonny Wrath 11. He says, "Hey guys, Sonny here. Hoping you're all having a blast this year, and I hope to make it next year to meet all you awesome folks. Good luck on the Final Fantasy 1 run, Poorscythe, and kill Kainazo and Valvalis. I mean, Cognazo and Barbarecia." We have $100 from Indy with no comment. Thank you so much, Indy. Appreciate it. We have
Puzzle. Go ahead. Puzzle's not my strong suit here, so but I'm. Nope, that's not. This is why I'm only taking 1 attempt at this. There we go. Okay, that's what I wanted. Nope, didn't get it. Oh well. I did get a turbo ether, but I don't really need that for anything, so I'm just going to sell that. And this Echo Grass Silence has no effect in this one. So I'm going to pick up a Steel Gloves and glitch the wonderful Barbarian Sword. And while I'm doing this, I'm going to use the leather shield I got earlier and glitch a Mage's Staff to put into my inventory so that my white or black mages can use that as an item and kill kill groups of enemies with a shorter animation than the Judgment Staff. So one of you guys want to explain the Barbarian Sword?
Yeah, the Barbarian Sword is normally the best sword in the game for the PSP version. It comes from the Ultra Super Boss at the end of the PSP version, Chronadia, and Chronadia's got a bunch of different forms that will each give you an item. So we'd normally get the Barbarian Sword for fighting the very best form of all. There's going to be some other ones from that item pool that are going to be used throughout this run. The Lust Dagger is going to be another one that you'll see later on at Crescent Lake. We'll be getting that, and those items really are very unbalanced in the base game. So if you are familiar with Final Fantasy 1, you know, items like the Masamune or the Excalibur, these are like 20 times more powerful.
So I only gave a copy to my Warrior and my Thief. An older route that we used to give it to all 4 characters. Shoutouts to Cruel, who many people donated for. He's the winner of our Total Chaos Tournament, a tournament that we recently held for the 90% version of this game. We just concluded our 3rd one about a week or 2 ago. And Cruel has now prevailed as the champion in the 1st and the 3rd tournaments.
Poorscythe is coming up on the 3rd floor here, which has got enemies cockatrices, which we'll want to save the game for. This is important just because he could get ambushed and then the entire party petrified, which would be a game over.
And if you were noticing very carefully just before I started the run, I actually deleted a save file. And the reason I did that is because my first access after turning on the console to save, I could work on that. But my first access to of the memory card takes considerably longer than any subsequent access, and deleting a save counts as a first access. So I tend to do that before I start a no reset style run, so that I can save a few seconds of access time on the memory card here. I'm actually playing on an ISO version on a memory stick here. This also has a UMD release, a physical UMD release. I don't like to play on that because it adds a significant amount of media access delay. So you notice a serious audio delay when you get into and out of towns or into combat. And it just adds time to the run overall. Okay, so you can see the power of the Barbarian Sword.
Yep, good fight.
So it's pretty much powerful enough to one-shot pretty much anything with the exception of the Fiend bosses later on and Chaos.
Now, because we didn't get the emergency exit, he's going to have to backtrack all the way through those 3 floors. And that's going to be completing the quest to pick up the Earth Rod, which then he has to come all the way back here to be able to advance on to eventually fight Lich. So this is probably a pretty good time to read some donations.
Yeah, absolutely. We have $10 from Vablonks. He says, Poorscythe is destined for greater things. He will knock them all down. Thank you so much, Vablonks. We have $25 from French Toast, who says, the walks must be silly. Thank you so much, French Toast. We have $10 from Anonymous. Hi, all. Can we have an Agama fact?
There's no Agama facts in this version. There's your Agama facts.
You might be able to get some Fire Lizard facts, but they are not going to be intentionally farmed for. So we might not see any Fire Lizards at all during this run. One of the biggest downsides of the PSP version, in my opinion.
But what we just saw was an Ochre Jelly, which is on 1 in 64, I believe. Very rare encounter in this dungeon.
Yeah, on this floor it's the rare encounter, then on the 5th floor it comes up a little bit more commonly.
And here we see the Pisco Demons that I was fighting in the Marsh Cave. Exactly the same as there. They're unrunnable here. So the easiest way for me to kill them with 3 of them is usually just to use the Judgment Staff as an item. Because they're resistant to fire and ice elements, but not to lightning. But I don't have anything that casts lightning at this point in time.
Even with Thundar at this point, your Mage Intelligence probably isn't enough to do the damage you would need to kill them. Intelligence is pretty important through this version of the game. Every time that you get 10 Intelligence, there's a multiplier that increases the damage by very significant amounts. So early on, you do pretty poor damage with your spells, but it will rapidly increase as you level up. And those multipliers are going to be kind of these breakpoints that you need throughout the run to be able to tackle certain enemy groups reliably. So if you ever see him switch back and forth between, hey, even though this is a monster weak to fire, but he's going to use the Flare Staff instead, it's because he doesn't have that multiplier for being able to take these packs out. Different routes of the PSP version will get the multipliers at different points. So for example, if the Black Mage was the dominant spellcaster, which is another route of the game, then you'd be seeing more aggressive spell use with the respective elements.
So just making our way over to the Giant's Cave over here to feed the Star Ruby I picked up from the chest after the Vampire, and continue advancing the early game fetch quest. So this has been going smoothly so far.
Usually not too much trouble until we get to Lich. Lich is probably the first point where you kind of get worried. Maybe those cockatrices on the 3rd floor, but Lich definitely has potential to wipe the party. Now, since we can save anywhere, there's a nice way to do that. But if you're going for the absolute ultimate strats, speeding the game as much as possible, you would take no saves. You probably wouldn't have gold needles. You'd be really blazing through this, and you would just accept that some percentage of the time you're gonna wipe about 35 minutes in.
Gonna sneak in here with a donation if you guys don't mind.
Go ahead.
We have $10 from Raving Sock Monkey. This says, Dear Geyer, Jim the Knight has replaced Dan for my favorite because of you. I'm setting an alarm to make sure I see Jim the Knight die from bees.
I can guarantee Jim the Knight is going to have a bad time, and hopefully everybody else is watching Virtual Highlight for Jim as well.
We have a $100 donation from Anonymous that says, that is the power of the Keyblade. Thank you so much, Anonymous. We have a $25 donation from Anonymous that says, please send my love to Geyer. Love you, Geyer.
And there we go. That's the Earth Rod. So that's going to be kind of what they used in the original version of the game to just stretch out that dungeon. The NES had very limited storage space for maps, and one of the ways that you can make dungeons longer is just make you do the floors multiple times. That's always been my theory about what Nasir was thinking about when the original map design was kind of put together, is how do you very efficiently be able to kind of extend the story experience for this part.
So yeah, after I defeat the vampire, I can visit the sage, and the sage will reward me with the Earth Rod, allowing me to continue on to the lower floors of the Cavern of Earth, where Lich resides there.
That Gulgas fight could have been a pretty dangerous one. That has the possibility of having a very, very large pack, which could give you stun lock. Since they're only going to be doing 1 damage, it would take a long time to kill your party. But the run killer is just having all those lost turns where you're sitting there paralyzed. That's pretty much the #1 thing you don't want to see throughout most of the early game is paralysis.
Paralysis encounters on the sea, ambushes of any kind, they all can just slow you down. And even in like the best case encounter takes usually 5 to 6 seconds. So I'm trying to minimize the number of encounters I get just by taking the path I'm taking on the overworld into the dungeons to take the lowest threat tiles when I have an option.
If you're familiar with other versions of the game, you'll see that he's getting these preemptives on shadows quite a lot. In the previous versions, it was a 90% chance of being ambushed, and they were actually pretty nice to you in the PSP version. They swapped around all of the ones that had 50% or higher ambush rates to make them preemptives. So you are going to preempt Warmech quite a lot. You're going to preempt shadows. Things that normally were very, very painful are instead almost free fights. Although I'm told Poorscythe would definitely fight Warmech if we find him.
We're gonna try. I haven't seen one in a while, but I'm sure he's just waiting for a party to break out. It's a shame he missed the last run.
This is just a friendly reminder to get those donations in for the Hellfire Chasm boss choice. Currently, Cognazo and Barbarisia are still in the lead, but there is time to see a different result. So make sure you guys get those donations in. It's for an amazing cause.
If I can give you guys some idea of which ones you want to be voting for on that one, the most dangerous bosses are going to be Scarmiglione and Barbariccia. So if you're looking to extend the run and make this a little more dangerous for me, that's the choice you want. And the other option is Cognazo and Rubicante are a little easier to handle, so that's probably the weakest combination. So if you want it to go as quickly as possible, that's probably going to be your choice. Or if you want something in the middle, you can take one of the other options.
We got a couple more donations here for you, Poorscythe.
Mm-hmm.
We have $25 from Ikben Mia. He says the Final Fantasy randomizer community is here to hype. Thanks for representing Final Fantasy on stream, Poorscythe.
Thank you, guys. And many of you may not be aware, there's actually a Final Fantasy randomizer for the PSP version that is currently in the works, created by Game Boy F9. So it's not publicly available today, but it's still being beta tested. But it doesn't have quite as many features as the randomizer for the NES version. But stay tuned, you may see more of that in the near future.
If you do want to try out the NES randomizer, you can go to FinalFantasyRandomizer.com, where the randomizer can be done online for generation. There's also a lovely group of people behind that are putting in a lot of effort into making this game have a lot of repetition. So in addition to the PSP one, there's additionally a GBA one, which I think is in mostly the same state as the PSP, still under development.
So getting a little unlucky with the Pisco Demons here because I got to stop and kill them every time I see them.
Now we're on to B5. No more wizards. Could get an unrunnable Earth. That's pretty rare though, so we should be all set for Lich here. You definitely want a safety save for Lich. There is a spell that Lich starts with in his spell list called Blizzara, and that would do enough damage to wipe the party pretty much guaranteed unless he heals up. And again, he doesn't want to heal up because then it's going to take longer to do the grind fight at the Ice Cave.
Plus, it's entirely possible that I don't have enough max HP to survive regardless. some of my characters may not survive. I'm only going to be attacking with the 2 melee characters because they're the only ones going to do significant damage with their weapons here.
Good fight.
That's what we want to see. Don't want to see him get a turn if I don't have to.
So now we're gonna see a little cutscene, and as we have said before, there are bonus dungeons in this game, and every time you defeat one of the elemental fiends, this bonus dungeon gets unlocked. In this case, this is the Earthgift Shrine, where you can find bosses from FF3. But since we're doing any percent, we are not going there. There are categories, for example, all bosses, where you go in all of these bonus dungeons and have to fight all those bosses.
These cutscenes here are also one of the few that are unskippable. A lot of the regular cutscenes in the game for entering the dungeons, you can just press start to skip by them. And so whenever you see them kind of sitting there, we are skipping everything that we can. I wish you could skip all of them. Those are a little bit repetitious after you've seen them a bunch.
They do provide a good moment to just rest and relax, though. Because otherwise, this is a very speedy run that doesn't give you a lot of downtime.
Downtime in an RPG is definitely good to help collect yourself and think what you're going to do next.
So I need to go back to my boat now to head over to Crescent Lake. As a reward for defeating the Lich, one of the wise men there will reward me with a canoe. But before I go pick that up, I'll be doing some shopping for a little more glitching. If the shadows will let me.
Got a couple donations here for you guys, if you don't mind.
Jump on it.
We have $196 from Cy Wildfire. He says, bit of a story behind this amount. 14 years ago today, my father took his own life after a fight with depression. 196 is 14 squared because, yes, I am that kind of nerd. Seeing people run RPGs in support of mental illness is a great thing to see, and I'm happy to donate in my father's memory. Donation goes to the runner's choice.
I believe I'm going to put that towards the blind menu incentive for S-Star for FF8. Because I saw that needs a little help.
Visa Hack still giving us a little bit of trouble with running, but once we get the black garb, then we'll have, I think, another 10 points of agility per slot replaced, and that'll make us fast enough for most things up until you get to ordeals.
So just got to work my way over there. Once again, I'm parking there. I'm also not following the dock to the closest possible spot because walking over dock tiles, I don't risk getting encounters on the dock tiles. And I'm trying to minimize the number of steps I can risk an encounter as much as possible. So I can take free steps, and it costs just a few frames to take each of these extra steps, but there's no risk of encounter, so it lowers my chances just a little bit more.
Just as a preview of what's coming up for the route, you're going to see a little bit of a different order for the dungeons than you'll see in the other versions of the game. That's because in the other versions, you're going to ordeals early, get equipment to get levels to make things like the Ice Cave and Gurgly Volcano more smooth in order to complete. But in this version, it's faster to route out, so you'll see ordeals towards the end where you're actually walking overland using the airship. All of this has been really, really extensively tested for the fastest walking pass, and it's cool that this has a lot of unique tech to it as a result for doing the routing.
This is just a reminder that during this event, you'll be hearing us talk about incentives and prizes. And this means that you get to vote with your wallet to name characters, get our runners to complete difficult or ridiculous tasks, or help pick which story you get to see in certain games. You also become eligible to win prizes donated by community members, and all donations do go to NAMI, the National Alliance on Mental Illness. So make sure you get those donations in, and make sure you donate to the incentive coming up soon for the Hellfire Chasm boss choice.
And again, we'll be cutting that off around the time that we're going to go to fight Tiamat in this, so we've got 2 more fiends and then then it'll be time for Tiamat after that.
So what you saw me do there in the shops was pick up a mithril gloves from the armor shop and a mithril axe from the weapon shop. And additionally, I cleared a couple spaces of inventory by selling some stuff off, so that the items that I bought would slot in where I want them to slot in my inventory order. But what I did with those items is I glitched the mithril axe into a piece of armor known as the Black Garb, which, as Jair mentioned earlier, adds even more agility to my characters. Yet it's again a bonus item in the bonus content of the GBA and PSP versions. I'm not sure if it's in the GBA version.
PSP exclusive.
But each one gives 10 points of agility, and I put it on 3 of my characters. The only reason I don't put it on the warrior is because the warrior is the only person capable of equipping the mithril axe. And due to the properties of the glitch, I need to glitch it from one character to an adjacent character. And a character that I glitch it from has to be able to naturally equip the item that I want to use for the glitching. So in this case, he's the only character that can use the mithril axe and easily glitch it onto the other characters, so I don't bother with him. Additionally, he's also not going to be alive for much longer.
Spoiler.
If you're watching carefully, my HP totals are slowly dwindling, but they're not quite dangerous yet. And in particular, they've been dwindling on my warrior and thief. They're about where I want them right now.
Yeah, once it gets to the boss of this dungeon, the Eye, that's where we do the only grind of the PSP version. It's a very, very short one, because you don't need very many levels, and also you're doing it with half of your characters already dead. And it's nice that it comes here because pretty shortly before the Eye, there are these ice tiles that will do 1 damage per step. So if you've got too much HP, a way to fix that is actually to just tile yourself back and forth until you've got a good amount where you're going to die to one single Thundara, the Eye's first spell.
So this is still a very dangerous dungeon, even in this version with the overpowered gear, because there are certain enemy formations, particularly if they show up in ambushes, that can still be very dangerous to me, which is why you saw me take a safety save there. I'm going to be taking a couple saves throughout this dungeon just to minimize the time loss and give me the easiest place to recover from if something goes very wrong. Alright, so take it one step onto this tile and force an encounter with a bunch of undead, which is an ambush, which is really unfortunate.
Yeah, we got 3 monsters here that have paralysis. Hopefully we don't have our party stun locked. Got our fighter down so far. There goes our thief, and luckily White Mage is okay, so probably be able to get out this round. Or as a backup, use the Judgment Staff to make sure that we can kill the party if we get a turn.
I could have used the Mage's Staff there, I just made a little mistake there with my selections. The Mage's Staff would have killed them just as easily. I'm going to take a save now. So
One thing we also haven't talked about is the formation of the party, because not only do we need the party members in a specific order for the glitch, but we also need them for the chance on how often they get hit. The character in the first spot gets hit 50% of the times. The second character gets, I believe, 25%, and the third and fourth place 12.5%.
Thanks, Double Drop, with your dragons.
Those Frost Dragons are a pretty bad foe, especially if they use their Blizzard Breath, which would be not good for this party.
Now, thankfully, it actually saved me a little trouble by killing off Cruel, because that was going to happen anyway, right up here. I'm just going to pass my turns until he casts Thundara or otherwise kills off the thief.
That was a great start, and for this particular run, it looks like you've got a very lovely Black Mage. It's pretty common to come in here with a Black Mage, can just barely or maybe not even survive that Thundara. As long as that HP growth continues, then we shouldn't have any problems with the Black Mage HP on Chaos.
Okay, just quickly checking my levels. So I'm going to be repeating this fight, because every time I step on this tile, I force an encounter with the Evil Eye. And I should be gaining a level 1 or 2 every 1 or 2 fights at this point. I'm going to be getting my guys up to level 17, plus 1 additional fight, or 18 if they happen to get on that. with the eventual goal of getting them to level 19 by the time I finish either Citadel of Trials or Mount Gulg. And I want that so that everyone is capable of purchasing all the spells that they're going to need later on. So I'm now at 15.
Would this be a good time for a couple donations?
Absolutely.
We have $25 from Anonymous that says, "Hey, Poorscythe, good luck with your run. Your Attention Duelist family is rooting you on."
Thank you, guys.
We have another $20 from Shinbreaker7. He says, "Hey, Poorscythe, Shin here. I see you made it through without any issues. That's great. Yeah, not jealous at all. As for incentives, just find whatever Poorscythe has for his choice and give it to whatever is the opposite of that." Thank you so much, Shinbreaker.
And we're just about done here with the leveling that will pretty much take us through the entire game. So bring up that thief. We want to keep the fighter actually dead for a little while longer to get our experience correctly distributed for the other party members. The fighter's got the biggest pool of HP, doesn't really have any problems surviving most of the game. The thief needs some help, and if you can get enough HP on the thief, you might be able to save a Giant's Tonic for the boss fight at the end.
Additionally, by bringing him back at this point, he may gain some experience from the fights that I need to gain the remaining levels in order to get him haste when I do some spell shopping. It may happen, it may not happen, but this gives it a chance of happening.
How often would you say you have haste on your ninja?
Probably less than 25%. So it's not very common, but it can happen. It's just going to depend on how much experience he gets from the upcoming fights. So I'm level 18 now. Just need to gain one more level on my mages to get them everything they need. So if you were wondering why this run is so short, it's because of all these quality of life changes that speed things along, as well as only needing so many levels to get through the game with all the overpowered gear that we have to overcome the stat deficiencies. So having a nice little sail over here back to my boat.
Yeah, we've gotten the floater or levistone from the ice cave. That'll give us access to the airship, which is where the Final Fantasy original game really opens up for being able to travel anywhere that you want to go. But we do have a little bit of time here before we get to our next area, so if we have some donations, it'd be a great time to jump in.
Yes, absolutely. We have $70 from Anonymous that just says B. Thanks so much, Anonymous. We have $45 from Anonymous that says Bonsai Forever. Also, thanks to all the runners and setup crew.
Just to explain, one of the runners in the PSP tournament, Kibitha, commonly likes to name her Black Mage Bonsai, and has had very good results with getting great HP growths on those characters over her many runs, as she ultimately finished in second place in the tournament. So I'm very happy to try to channel the power of Bonsai.
I think it's working here. You've got an amazing Black Mage.
We have a couple more donations here for you guys.
Go ahead.
$25 from Wannabe Cat that says, "Go Custom Robo Tournament, that is all." Well, thank you so much for that donation. We have a $300 donation.
Thank you.
From Chris V with no comment. Thank you so much, Chris. We appreciate your donation.
This walk here is very different from what you've seen from most other versions where you sail to ordeals. Because of the way that you're traveling around. Didn't get any sandworms this time, could have, but that's pretty much the only thing that you kind of worry about doing the overworld travel. And the number of steps you take isn't going to be significant enough to be able to outweigh the time it takes just to sail here and back.
So anytime you see me taking a safety save, it's just to guard against the absolute worst case RNG in this game. So I mean, getting a sandworm is not necessarily a bad thing, but if it happens to ambush me, and if that ambush sandworm happens to cast Earthquake, and if Earthquake happens to land and hit all four of my party members, that kind of sucks. So I'm just saving to give myself the option to recover from that really unfortunate circumstance. Shoutouts to Cruel, who actually experienced that in his tournament finals. So there's a bit of a teleporter maze here in the Citadel for those of you not familiar with the game. So each of these rooms has 1 or 2 teleporters that I need to take in order to get to the next room. If I take the wrong one, it just puts me back at the beginning of the floor, and I have to repeat the sequence.
Handy tip is it's always the bottommost teleporter that you want to take, so it's pretty easy to memorize this map.
And additionally, every time I step in a teleporter, it actually does reset the encounter level. So my chances of getting encounters are fairly low on this. But if I do get an encounter, like such as this Minotaur zombie, I will have to fight it because that's an unrunnable encounter here. But it also helps me get some of the experience that I'm still needing to get to level 19.
The 3 fights I'll take in here, those zombies, which are unrunnable, the Nightmare, which is guarding the heal staff coming up, that's usually a pretty good one to get your levels required, and then the Zombie D fight at the end, the Zombie Dragon, has another really good source of experience. So you can pretty much fix up to exactly the amount of experience that you want before you leave this dungeon.
So this is actually a preemptive, but I'm going to fight it anyway. It's actually a runnable encounter, and you can tell if it's runnable encounter by getting a preemptive, because that means it's not an unrunnable encounter. But in general, getting unrunnable encounters, there's no real feedback in this game if you happen to get an unrunnable encounter. So I basically have to memorize which formations are and are not unrunnable. If I try to run from an unrunnable group, I'm not going to receive any message saying that I can't do that. I'm just going to see the animation play out and them unsuccessful. And I can do that as long as I want, but the game will never let me run away.
There's those Zeus gauntlets. That's going to let the characters cast Thundara there, which will be pretty helpful for a lot of the aquatic-based monsters, especially the ones in the Sea Shrine, to be able to deal with those.
So on this last tile here is a forced encounter with Dragon Zombie, which I have to kill. And I'm looking to see if my mages got into 19. They did not. So I'm going to take one more fight against them. So I shortchanged my grinding session a little bit just to take the chance that I might get more unrunnable enemies than I did. So to make up the difference, I just repeat that fight there. Optionally, if I'm really close to 19 and I carefully check my experience levels, I may also be able to get it on Merilith herself, assuming that all characters survive.
Now for this walk back, we'll see the slight chance of sandworms again. That little desert area, as well as to the east of it where the airship is parked, is where the sandworms can show up. And other than that, it's just a bunch of walking here until we get to Gurgu Volcanoes. This will be another great time for some donations.
Yeah, absolutely. We have $20 from Patrick 8, who says, "For years I struggled with depression and suicidal thoughts, and today I'm a licensed therapist. Part of how I transitioned from one to the other was the intervention of a lovely organization called NAMI, so I'm happy to donate, and I'm so glad RPG Limit Break is continuing to support NAMI. I'm also happy to donate during Final Fantasy I, the first RPG I ever played. Thank you, all of you."
Thank you.
Very kind of you, Patrick. We appreciate you. We have $5 from Plazitron that says, "Let's get that Scar and Bar boss option to keep it difficult." And of course, he is referring to the Hellfire Chasm boss choice, which is coming up here soon. So get those donations in. Currently, Cognazo and Barbaricia are still in the lead, but there is a little bit time left to sway that.
So here I'm taking the rat tail that I found in the Citadel of Trials and presenting it as a proof of courage to Bahamut, and he'll allow me to class change to the upgraded forms.
Besides the proof of trial with the rat tail, you also have the trial of his unnecessarily long hallways. Even with the dash speed, it's just a ridiculous amount of time going back and forth across these 2 floors.
So you saw me do a quick glitch there, putting a copy of an item known as the Lordly Robes. I glitched that off the healing staff I picked up on the 3rd floor of the Citadel of Trials. That Lordly Robe actually adds a significant amount of intelligence to the White Mage. And additionally, I also put it on the shield slot for her as a safe item that I am able to equip on her without risking a hard lock of the game. So you may see a bit of a wacky animation if you see her block an attack here. I don't have enough money, so I'm going to sell something. Oh, that's why, because I didn't sell my
yeah.
Knights armors. Not sure how I forgot to do that. Don't usually do that.
I was going to say, with this route, you've got so much cash from the equipment glitch that it's very unusual to not have any, but those Knight's Armors are pretty much your primary way for the early game of getting your money. Our last little bit of questing here, so we are continuing to make our way towards Gurgur Volcano, which will be our second fiend. So we probably have one more opportunity to sneak in a donation before we run down to the volcano.
Yes, absolutely. We have a $100 donation from Anonymous that says, "Great cause. The amazing commentary and games are pretty good too." Thank you so much for that donation, Anonymous.
A lot of what's going on right now is just set up for the future parts. So we got the bottle to the ferry, which gets us the Oxyel, allowing us to breathe underwater. That's entrance to the Sea Shrine, which will be our third fiend. And you'll see just how rapidly that you crank these areas out. Once you get past Lich, and even in this version, it's a little bit longer for that early stretch, but now we're just going to go nuts with probably about 5 minutes per dungeon for the rest of the game.
Yeah, we pretty much just speed through the rest of the dungeons.
Yeah, we're already over pretty much halfway through this run right about now. So I take care of that errand of picking up the Oxyale on the way to Mount Gulg, so I don't have to do it afterwards.
I was going to say, let's hope for a zero encounter, Gurgur Volcano, but we've got one on the first floor. The only one that's kind of tricky is there's an Ogre Mage formation down later in the dungeon. It's ambiguous whether you have an unrunnable formation on your hands there, so just for safety, if you see Ogre Mages on like the 4th or 5th floors, they'll be going for kills, even though it might potentially be runnable.
You also notice me walking on lava tiles as similar to the dock tiles. I don't risk an encounter when I get one of them. I do take damage from my characters, however, though, so I have to carefully watch their HP just to make sure it's not too low in case of a really unfortunate ambush. So on the next floor, I'm going to heal up just in case.
Yeah, probably the one encounter you'd worry about is the Fire Hydra, which their breath attack as an AoE could be pretty bad if you've got your party around, like, say, 40 or so hit points.
And I'm only healing one character there as a safety, because on the final floor, I will be healing everyone up to full. So I just want some additional safety there without having to necessarily save the game, which takes longer than it does to actually just use a bunch of potions. Okay, so everyone's back to full health, and I'm on the last stretch here to Marilith. Was that one encounter or two encounters?
That was 2 encounters?
That's pretty good. It's possible to get 0.
2 encounters is probably right around the average. Alright, here we go. Time for another super fast boss fight thanks to the Barbarian Swords.
Little unlucky she used Fire there, but it's not a huge risk to mine.
Still a good fight.
I could have optionally also attacked with my mages who now have Lust Daggers equipped. I'm not sure if we actually explained Lust Daggers earlier when I was glitching. So the other item I picked up in Crescent Lake, I explained the Mithril Axe earlier, but the other item was a Mithril Gloves, which can be used to glitch into the Lust Dagger. So this is an item I put on my 2 mages. It gives them 20 points of agility. So combined with the black arts they have an additional 50 points of agility on top of their normal stats at these levels. So that greatly speeds their chances of acting early in the combat order and being able to successfully escape. So more often than not, you're going to see them act earliest in the turn order if I have to fight something. And I'm going to be using that in combination with... Ooh, that's unrunnable.
And normally a lot of this agility boosting gear, those are actually ninja exclusives for the PSP version. So because of the equipment glitch, you can put them on any character class, which is further unbalancing how a lot of these are being played out.
Alright, so now that I'm done with the Mount Gulg, I'm going to do my shopping section. Everybody's level 19 and the class changes there, so I can get everything I need at this point.
Yeah, the big thing picked up here is the haste spell, which will, unlike later Final Fantasies, simply double your number of attacks. There's no ATB system or kind of turn order preference that's based on your speed. Instead, when you increase or decrease your speed, that'll affect the number of times that you get to attack per round when your turn comes up.
Additionally, I wasn't lucky enough to get enough experience for haste on the thief, so we tried, but
Yeah, as we talked about earlier, it's actually less than 50% chance for that to happen.
and the other spells I'm picking up here are Heal R and Teleport. Heal R will be my main means of healing from this point forward, and Teleport is what I need the class change for, along with level 19. It will allow me to backtrack through many dungeons, or allow me to skip backtracking through many dungeons and towns, and just save a bunch of time. Oh, here we get another unrunnable here in the overworld.
Here's another slight routing difference with the PSP version, doing Sea Shrine before Waterfall. Again, because of the equipment glitch, you're able to be pretty much able to speed through these dungeons very quickly, so you don't need the ribbon from the Waterfall to increase your survivability in the Sea Shrine.
Oh, this NPC's in the way today.
I got another donation for you here, if you don't mind, Si.
Sure.
It's from Double Drop 32, donating $10. He says, "Hey, Poorscythe, just wanted to say you're welcome for summoning my dragons. There was no way I'd let you have a double dragon-free RPGLB run. Shoutouts to the couch for holding it down for me since I couldn't make it out this year. I was gonna let you pick where my donation went, but you did 15 puzzle, so it's Geyer's choice."
Well, I think that we have a challenge for Diablo 2, which has not been met, which is the secret cow level. If you could check that for me. That's another great run coming up by Rue Quetzalcoatl that also did amazingly well at the Breath of Fire race earlier in the week.
So that was actually an amazing run through the first 2 floors of this dungeon. Usually there's a lot of encounters I can get there, including some unrunnables, and getting nothing on the way there is great. This particular 5th floor here has no encounters. So I have to travel first over to get the Rosetta Stone here and pick that up, as I need that in order to get to Tiamat for the next section. But there's also an item I can pick up here on the 4th floor, and this is a recent strategy development that I've been picking up. I'm not convinced it's necessarily faster than the older route, but there are actually 2 light axes that can be picked up in 2 different chests, and each one along the 2 different routes that you can take through the Sunken Shrine. So I've been experimenting with picking up the one here, as there's actually fewer steps to pick it up, but the odds of getting an encounter on this floor are a little higher. So if I don't get too many encounters, it can actually be faster, and additionally it gives me better gear when I traverse through the back half of the dungeon to get to Kraken. So I can just warp back using teleport, walk over to that chest and warp back again to put me back towards the start of this, and then I head over to Kraken here.
And I had actually not seen this version until Poorscythe showed me in the practice room. It makes sense that if you kind of crank it out, there is potentially a difference between the two. It'll be really interesting to see if there is some testing to confirm that the upstairs light axe is faster than the downstairs one. Downstairs one's got a forced encounter, which is sometimes the source of the slowness for that.
Yeah, it's more steps required to actually get to the other one, because 2 of the 3 steps that you can approach the tile, or you can approach the chest from, are actually trapped with enemy encounters. And there's no such traps on that floor, on the 4th floor axe. There is still a risk of encounters there, though, including unrunnables on the 4th floor. So it hasn't been definitively proven either way, but I've just been getting used to doing it. We kind of discovered that just theory crafting, going through the game with a reverse boss order where you're forced to kill Tiamat before Kraken, and then Kraken before you fight Marilith. And while it's not a meaningfully different run in doing so, I mean, we just kind of discovered that along the way. So it was an interesting strategy inclusion that I just decided to work into my route.
And at this point, the PSP version is down to those optimizations a few seconds at a time. It's been a while since the last major route change, which was the Lust Dagger route that you're seeing here. A lot of other variations before that have been different combinations of items that you're glitching in, so a lot of research went into figuring out the combination that you're using for the run that you see here today.
You know, it was discovered, I think, last year when we were in the middle of our PSP tournament. some French runners were using the strategy, and many of us had not seen it. We weren't really sure what they were doing. But over time, we kind of discovered that it's a very helpful item, and another prominent runner, Nikki Noel, pioneered a couple routes, this being the first one she pioneered, which was focusing on using the white mage for clearing larger enemy groups. There's also a different route that exists using the black mage for the same purpose, but the black mage uses the spells, so you would detour into the shops in some of the towns to pick up some different spells like Fyra, Thundara, Blazara. So it hasn't, I mean, there's two popular routes using the Lust Dagger right now because of that. And neither has definitively been proven as faster than the other, but they certainly can be.
I think the Black Mage route comes out faster if you get unlucky encounters, more of those packs you need to clear out. White Mage route comes out faster if you are doing really good for not seeing a lot of the groups to clear out. Poorscythe, I think you've also tried a few other routes in the past that are great if you get optimal encounters.
Yeah. An older route just used just the Judgment Staff and just 4 Barbarian Swords on everybody. So it gave you fewer options to deal with everything, but pretty set options for how to deal with everything. So if you get better luck, that could still be a very fast route, as proven by our tournament winner, Cruel, who still runs the older route and ran it to perfection in winning the tournament. So now that I'm done with Sunken here, I'm going to go into the Waterfall Cavern. And all the additional gear I've been glitching makes this pretty much a breeze. There's no particularly dangerous enemies here. There can be some that can slow me down, but the chances of really getting hurt here are pretty low.
The one encounter you probably doesn't want to see is the perilous cockatrice fight. You still have a slight chance, even with all this gear, of getting the instant death and the petrification landing through your defenses, but the odds are very low of that happening.
My HP was a little low, and just in case there are a green dragon ambush here, I opted to heal up. Not strictly necessary, but if I happen to run into one and it happens to ambush me, bad things can happen. So it's always better to be safe than sorry, especially in a marathon-style run such as this.
Green Dragon would never be an ambush because he's unrunnable.
That's right. So as soon as I step in here, this is a forced encounter here, and thankfully for me it's preemptive, so I can just run away instantly. And I need 2 things in this room. I need to pick up a ribbon and the warp cube from this robot here. So I need the warp cube to travel from the Mirage Tower to Flying Fortress. And I need the ribbon for a glitch. What am I doing here?
This is the first time we've used the glitch in this way, which is to duplicate an item as opposed to make something that we didn't have before. You can only duplicate if you don't have any copies of that item sitting in your inventory. And so what we're going to do is turn the ribbon into Judgment Axe, and then turn Judgment Axes into ribbons, as many as we want. So we don't have to worry about collecting the other ribbons in the game. Normally you'd go for the 3 ribbons scattered throughout, and if you're playing the bonus dungeons, you can also get a ribbon by Rubicante, which of course we're not going to need, so hopefully Rubicante does not win on that bid war. Speaking of which, how is that bid war going?
Actually, currently in the lead now is Scarmiglione and Barbarecia for the Hellfire Chasm boss choice. Reminder that will be ending shortly, so make sure you guys get those donations in. They're only $1 apart right now, so it really is anyone's game.
Yeah, we got probably about maybe about 5 minutes to go before we're going to cut that off.
So now that I have the Rosetta Stone that I picked up earlier in the Sunken Shrine, I have to take it here to Melmond, to this Dr. Un, to translate. So this will be my last trip to Melmond, one of Jagger's favorite towns.
Melmond is probably the worst mod ever.
I got a couple donations here for you guys, if you don't mind.
Jump ahead. We got a lot of time here walking for Lufania.
Oh, perfect. We have a $75 donation from Verticus that says, I can't believe I've been enjoying every playthrough, 100 plus, question mark, of this game since the old 80s. Thank you so much for that generous donation. We have $20 from RDDP that says, keep fighting the good fight now and 2,000 years ago. We have another $10 donation from Geister Carly. It says, got up early to catch the Final Fantasy block. My work will probably suffer from that later, but who cares? RPGLB is great. Thank you so much, and I hope that your work is not suffering.
Those Minotaur zombies, the only unrunnable here that we need to worry about for the walk down to the town and back. At this point, the formations are not going to give you too much experience that you'd worry about over-leveling, especially on that White Mage, but that can happen in Temple of Fiends Revisited. The White Mage, you're intentionally trying to keep at a certain level so that the White Mage is not going to outspeed Chaos for your heals. And if you get lots of purple worms, and we're going to even be a little bit more at risk for that because of the detour to do the incentive for the bonus bosses. So if you get too high, then the White Mage becomes more of a liability than you'd like.
So as we see, these NPCs can get in these very narrow passages and block my way. If that happens, I just basically have to push them out of the way.
I'd suggest using the Judgment Staffs for some nukes.
I mean, I've always said that I wanted to take the diplomatic option in this game, but it turns out that the diplomatic option is very often the same as the violence option for many of these encounters. So this is a larger group, and it's going to be quicker to just use the mage staff to take them out rather than melee them down one by one. That's a little unusual. Not used to seeing that.
Yeah, I'm trying to think if you need to check your items to make sure that you're not missing anything on the White Mage there for.
Yeah, I
for
may do
equipment.
that just to make sure. But I'm past running into them at this point.
Because there's so many of those quick glitches, it's pretty easy to forget to do one of them or to accidentally not get the glitch. There's no audio indication or visual cue. You have to be reading really fast to see whether the correct item went on. Because if you have an appropriate item in your inventory, the game will happily just equip it. So as you build up inventory over the course of the run, there's more and more likelihood that any particular slot has something valid already there.
Yeah, especially with items with names that are really close.
Yeah, like the black robe and the black garb are pretty easy to mistake.
Yeah, trying to use a black garb in combat unfortunately does not result in any worthwhile outcome. So I will double check. I'm going to take a save, probably at the beginning of Flying Fortress, and I'll double check her equipment there. We'll see what's wrong with Astos.
I have another donation here for you guys, if you don't mind. $20 from Anonymous, saying, I'm donating during the Final Fantasy run because Geyer and Fiesel's run of the NES version finally pushed me to start speedrunning. Now, this game was a staple in my childhood, and I never really thought about running an RPG until I saw that. Donation goes to Geyer's Choice.
I think we'll keep going to the Secret Cal level. Glad everybody was able to enjoy that. Hopefully we get a Warmuck here as well. That was kind of the highlight of the AGDQ run.
Yeah, so for those of you in chat that are hoping for that, please get out your less RNGs as we work our way there.
And here after this Blue Dragon, this is probably a good time to cut off the incentive for the super bosses that we're going to be fighting in Hellfire Chasm.
Alrighty, and I will give you one last refresh. And it looks like sneaking it out by just $1 is going to be the Scarmiglione and Barbarisia.
Okay.
Excellent. Those are the ones that are the most likely to cause some problems thanks to their pretty powerful AoE attacks.
And indeed, I did have a wrong piece of gear on there, so that explains why the Black Mage, or why the White Mage did not kill everything when I was trying to use the Mage Staff earlier. I'm pretty sure I performed the glitch, but I did not actually confirm it to put the right piece of gear on that last slot. So it's an easy mistake to make.
We're going to pretty much speed through this dungeon. There is no need to pick up the Adamant. We're not going to get the Excalibur. Don't need any of those robes or anything. We got better gear already, which makes this actually one of the faster dungeons in the game when you're able to skip all of the items inside.
I just run right through it all the way to the end.
To the 4th floor here. So we got one floor, everybody, to get ready for Warmech. Warmech is a 1 in 64 encounter in every version except for the NES version. He was changed to 3 in 64 there. I'm guessing because of the picture contest that they had for the NES version. Originally, I thought that was just all early versions, but after some testing, we found out Famicom was 1 in 64. So somebody made a deliberate change for the US market.
Oh, wow.
Cross your fingers. Is this a Warmech? It's not a Warmech.
Now, we didn't see one now, but we can still see one after I take on Tiamat.
Very, very slim chance. I don't think Tiamat doing a boss fight resets your threat level, so maybe we get one more encounter there on the way to the exit.
And in an effort to try to make this a 1-round fight, I'm going to be hasting the Thief to try to see if I can do 2,400 damage between my 2 melee characters to take him down. And it looks like I did. I can optionally not haste and then just do it over 2 rounds. We just got to wait a minute. Cutscene. So here we see the last bonus dungeon opening up. Unfortunately, the bonus dungeons don't offer too much in the way of the any percent run, because there's no quick way to get in and out of the dungeons. The only way to be able to enter or exit the dungeon is to either complete the dungeon by defeating a boss and then taking a port out, or by actually wiping, which will put you back at the entrance. Come on. Boo. Maybe next year?
Maybe T-Rex?
Aw, no Tyrannosaur.
I heard you did not get any Tyrannosaurs the entire time that you did the tournament. It's a 1 in 64 encounter that you can only have in that little stretch walking back and forth between Mirage Tower. So one of the rare encounters in the entire game.
So this is Hellfire Chasm. This is the bonus dungeon I was offering here that you guys have chosen. To explain, this is a extremely random content edition that was added in the GBA version of the game and also here. So what actually happens here is there are 10 floors to this dungeon, and they are presented in a random order, but I will see 7 of the 8 floors each time I run this, not necessarily in any order, but there are different spawn points where I can show up on each of the different maps. So, I mean, the order that I see them is random. The spawn location on each floor is random. There are additionally treasure chests that can appear on this floor in fixed random locations. There's some new enemies that are here in this content that you're not going to see in the regular game. And you'll see me very carefully stepping on this floor because there's actually some glinting jewel tiles. If I step on them, I force a random encounter. And additionally, some of those NPCs, there's no way for me to force those NPCs out of the way, so I have to wait for them to get out of my way or walk along their patrol and get out of their way. On this floor, I take fixed damage over time unless I'm stepping on these white tiles here.
That previous floor with the ice town, and then one floor which is going to look like the world map. Those are probably the 2 most annoying ones in this particular dungeon to deal with.
One thing we also gonna see is that we will see a world map, and there are actually 3 different world maps, and we only get one. And the time difference between those world maps, I think between the shortest and the longest is about like 1.5 minutes.
All right, so just to confirm, that was Scarmiglione and Valbaricia?
That is correct.
Okay. All right. Changing my gear around here towards a more chaos-style fight. additionally, I'm taking a safety save here because this can be a very dangerous fight. Even with all this overpowered gear. It's not necessarily overpowered here. We're in the bonus dungeons where it was intended to be found, though. So we're going to see both forms of Scarmiglione. This first form is very weak. I hope you guys enjoy it as well, the remix from the FF4 boss theme.
The remix music is exclusive to the PSP version, so even though the GBA had this dungeon, they only used the regular boss theme, so it was a nice upgrade for this version of the game.
Yeah, definitely a good add-on.
The big thing we don't want to see is double poison gas here. That's probably the most likely way Scarmiglione can win.
If he uses that, it's probably going to cause a reset. Now that my heal went off, I'm in okay shape for that. So the first form of Scarmiglione only had about 4,000. This one only has about 7,500. But he can hit very hard or very weakly, as you can see here. That was a little mistake there. We're just rehasting. Doesn't actually do anything. Okay.
Disappointing. Come on, Barbaricia, do better.
Additionally, the warrior got poisoned even through he had a ribbon on. Alright, so we got through the first floor. We had the choice of bosses on the 5th floor. Now the 6th through the 9th floors are once again randomly presented floors that in certain orders. So of the 8 random floors, because the 5th and the 10th floors are fixed in terms of what is presented to me, there are, I believe, are 23 different spawn locations among the 8 possible floors, and additionally there's going to be one floor that looks like an overworld map, and there's actually 3 variations of that map. The location I spawn on each one is fixed, but which one is presented to me is totally random, and certain formations are considerably longer than other ones, so I'm really hoping to avoid one specific formation.
This floor also has a set spawn point.
Okay. I probably took the long way on this one. Yeah, but many of these floors look very similar to the Mount Gulg floors, so it can be difficult to distinguish which one is which.
Looks like you're getting the world map last.
Yeah, so we're really hoping for one of the 2 better spawns and not the 3rd spawn.
The one he's trying to avoid is the only one that requires getting the airship as a mini quest during here.
And that's the bad one. I should probably heal just in case.
I think the only unrunnable here is the Death Elemental that might show up.
It's the Hagen Queens, I think, on the ocean.
Okay. They were a little bit lazy for the bonus dungeons. Everything in here is just going to be palette swaps of monsters in the earlier parts of the game. They also don't give very much experience, so I think it was kind of intended that you did all of your leveling outside, and it wouldn't really impact how the main story flowed when you jumped into these. You get some gear, but you would come out with basically the same level or maybe one level higher.
So what needs to happen on this floor is I need to make my way over to this ship. Then I need to sail to an island to speak to an NPC. Once I located him and talked to him, I'm able to go obtain an airship, and I will need that.
The confusing thing is he tells you to go find the Levistone, but it doesn't actually require that you go find one. All you do is talk to him to activate the airship, and then when you're at the proper spot, the airship will then come out of the ground. So that really confused me the very first time that I saw this. I was looking for one of the chests to give me the floater like you would have in the base game.
Yeah.
So the other 2 variations of this world map don't require you to pick up the airship, and you can actually sail to the destination. And they're also located much, much closer, so there's much less overworld traversal needed in general to reach your ultimate destination. So I need to get to this desert that's coming up here, talk to a tree. And then that triggers another airship cutscene here. And perhaps as a final insult, the island where I exit is basically located like 10 steps over. But this particular floor is just significantly longer than the other two variations, which is why we don't want to see that.
Airship and done.
All right, final floor here. So I can take 2 paths on this one to face either Scar or Barbaricha or Rubicante. We're going to go for Barbaricha as soon as my control works. All right. Once again, I'm going to heal and ether.
Once again, taking a quick safety save. The odds of either Scarbiglin or Barbaricha being mean is pretty small. They have to do their good attack twice in a row, generally before we get the Giant's tonics off. But hopefully Barbaricha can make up for the lack of poison gas.
So she's got about twice as much HP as Scarmiglione had, which I have to chew through. We don't want to see... I don't personally want to see Cyclone. I think some people might want to see Cyclone. So she started... Black Mage doesn't really contribute any meaningful damage in this fight after hasting. So that's probably a dead Black Mage. It may be a dead White Mage as well. Yep. That did a lot of damage, wow.
That's where we need the second Cyclone, so
Nice hit.
good try.
Wait, that's not supposed to happen. Dan's not supposed to be alive, is he? So I'm going to return my gear back to where it was before I went into this section. Oops, I had that.
Yeah, there's basically 2 main sets of gear. There's one for getting through as fast as possible. There's one for the boss fights. And it's pretty easy to, when you're in Temple of Fiends or visit it, get stuck in an encounter, because a lot of those monsters have very, very high agilities, especially the Frost Dragons, and those are going to be tricky encounters if you can't outspeed them.
So here we're beginning the final dungeon. In the PSP version here, you see a short cutscene where this NPC, once you've defeated all 4 fiends, actually opens the PSP exclusive dungeon, the Labyrinth of Time, at a little entrance in the very back of this floor. And that cutscene plays automatically when I walk in here. But we're just going to ignore that and move on. So all of the dungeons are very random in this. All the bonus dungeons that have been added in this content are extremely random. And don't add any meaningful, or no reason for us to actually go through them. I mean, since we have the glitch, we can obtain many of the items without having to go through it. All right, I'm gonna take a quick safety save here, and begin our final dungeon.
Pretty much only one encounter here that we don't really want to see, which is the Purple Worms. They're unrunnable to give a lot of experience, and that's what can push your White Mage over the top. Other than that, we're going to run up to the top floor, kill Phantom, run back down, start on the elemental floor. So this is probably our last opportunity to get some donations in for the run.
Yeah, absolutely. We have $10 from Warmech that says, "Sorry I'm late." I had a lunch appointment. Can we reschedule? Thanks so much for that donation, Warmech.
I'm here all week.
We have a $25 donation from Anonymous that says, "Hi, Chris. And we have a $25 donation from Nemo2342 with no comment. Thank you guys all for those generous donations. And just a quick reminder that we do have an incentive coming up for the next game, which is Final Fantasy IV Interlude, for the music choice. So get those donations in.
There we go, Phantom down. Now back to the reverse order through here. Again, a way to just kind of stretch the dungeons out, giving you these locked areas where you have to repeat the floors going back and forth as you start this off. Once we're through this, then we're into the Elemental Fiend floors. Got to refight all of the previous bosses that we've seen so far. So Lich, Merilith, Kraken, and Tiamat make a brief set of appearances. Normally those are somewhat difficult fights, but since we still have all that awesome gear that we have been collecting over the course of this run, it'll only maybe take us one round longer to kill them.
These have been some fantastic floors since I got past Death Eye. Normally, it's very easy to get many, many more encounters than I did on those 2 floors. And I took a safety save because I really, really hate white dragons. And I don't trust them not to kill me. So on this particular floor, I'm really hoping not to see Earth Elementals. And I really don't want to see Earth Medusas in an ambush, as their gaze attacks can waste a lot of time, especially if many of them do it.
There's the Earth Elementals. The ones we don't want to see: Earth, Fire, Water. Don't want to see any Iron Golems, but they're pretty rare. Probably won't show up. Usually not too many times that we'll have to deal with them, and we do have the tools to make this work. For this particular route, I believe Earth Elementals have a little bit too much HP for you to get the Fire spell to be used, and so you'll still see a couple of times where Flare is required.
I don't really need to take a safety save here, but I will just in case. Although my HP totals are a little bit low, so that's probably not a bad idea to take a save there. Lich can use a very powerful move that may look familiar. I guess we'll see. I'm going to try to haste and try to end this in one round. If I could do 2,800 damage between my 2 melee characters. That's not enough. So there it is. He's good. Whoa!
Easy fight.
We'll just pretend that didn't happen.
You had 7 bonus HP, you're good.
I don't usually want to see that because it just necessitates me taking a menu, and usually it's not that painful to take a flare, but it, obviously with the low HP totals of my characters, that was a greater risk than usual. So it's a really good thing I did take that safety save just in case.
No worries, no one saw that.
Hey, some fire lizards. Merilith's force pretty short here, so I mean the 2 encounters I got, not too bad. Oops. Don't need to haste here because this is going to take me at least 2 rounds anyway. The worst she can do here is cast Faraga on me. If she does, it'll just slow me down a little bit as I have to take a menu to heal back up. So once again, I'm watching the HP totals of my Thief and Black Mage. Specifically, I want the Thief to be around 300, and I want the Black Mage to probably be about 275, ideally, before the final fight. If I have that, I don't need Giant's Tonics for the final fight.
These are a little bit of an annoying encounter because they actually do have pretty good agility for some of the encounters on this floor. So you might see a few run failures, which is a lot of turns, since they generally stuff the encounters with many, many monsters here that get free attacks.
heal up just in case Kraken attempts to spam Thundara on me. So normally in many of the other versions of the game, running into Kraken can be a very painful encounter. The gear that I have here, his smacks don't do much damage at all, and his spells are actually more dangerous to me. And I rolled a little low on my damage. That took 3 rounds instead of 2. But he still looks good doing that.
Let's see if we get that Iron Golem fight. 164 of this little stretch. Purple Worms, so some potentially unwanted experience here. Again, we don't want the White Mage to be too high of a level, because the White Mage really needs to go last during the Chaos fight. You don't want to be healing and then the boss attacking you after you've done your heal.
Additionally, one of my melee characters rolled a little bit low with their damage roll, and of course I got the emergency exit. Hope that was not what I meant to do.
You see on the haste here, can stretch this fight out a little bit, but ideally it's going to be 2 rounds. That Black Mage very, very eager to go to Chaos.
That's not right. That's right. Not my finest fight against Tiamat. There we go. We got through it, though. And everybody's still alive.
And here we are, final floor. No encounters here. Going to get set up for the Chaos battle. You saw this earlier when Poorscythe was doing the bonus dungeon for the setup that's going to be used here. So got to do all those swaps to put those back on. And that will basically take us into the finale.
Oops. All right, one last final safety save, just in case.
Chaos is probably the second most dangerous fight in the game after Lich when you're doing the speedruns for it. So even though you were pretty overpowered, this is where you can actually wipe and lose a run.
So this is my personal favorite remixed battle theme.
Yeah, the Chaos music dedicated theme, really good. Also, they did give him 10 times as much HP as the original version, so we have 20,000 damage to do. Probably is not going to get off a Cure 4 or Cure Raja, which would recover 9999. We'll be doing so much damage that even if he does do that, it's only another couple of rounds to take that back off.
So the general idea is the setup. Since my Thief and Black Mage have low HP, I'm going to use Giant's Tonics 2, which is a temporary item in this version that can raise their maximum HP by 200 for the duration of a fight. My White Mage is going to be exclusively on Healara. Oops. And my Black Mage will be hasting the other 3 characters, and then they will each attack in sequence. And this should take about, usually 7 rounds.
He's going right down his skill line. The skills are the most powerful attacks that he has early on in his move cycle. So he's got one more after this, which hopefully doesn't show up, because I think it's going to be pretty close whether he can outdo this healer. All right, probably are going to be okay here.
It should be okay from here on out. White Mage is a little low, but we're kind of committed at this point, so we're just going to go with it.
There was a Cyclone. If that had happened the previous round, we might have had an interesting fight. From this point on, you are multiple spells away from having Cure 4 happen. His next skill, Earthquake, is not going to be a problem thanks to the ribbons. physical attacks can still paralyze somebody, but we're kind of in the home stretch. Just gotta
I also
continue it a little
specifically set up the White Mage's gear, so I took all of her plus agility gear off and basically stacked intelligence gear to raise her healing capability, with the intention of making sure that she acts last in the combat order so that she'll heal. Because if she heals out of order or acts before chaos, this can turn into a very unpredictable fight. And time should be coming up. Pretty much any hit now. When you see the screen flash, it'll be time.
I was hoping it'd be Dan. We just got slowed. Come on, Dan.
Time.
There we go. Time. Excellent run there, Poorscythe, doing the bonus dungeon, not normally seen in the middle of any percent runs, so that's why we had a little bit of a detour there. And I think that was pretty solid. We didn't have any deaths. There was an attempt, but you managed to clear that with plenty of HP to spare.
So yeah, I just want to give a shout out to the organizers. Thanks for everyone for allowing me to offer this and accepting it. I want to thank these guys for helping to commentate this run. I didn't have any real plans about who I was specifically going to invite to help commentate this. And I just want to also give a shout out to the charity. I've also had my own personal struggles with mental illness, so supporting the charity is a very worthwhile cause in my eyes. Want to give a shout out to the FF1 and 2 communities. We have a nice Discord, and a lot of these guys have been helping me out with the run over the last 3 years. I've been playing this probably about 2.5 years now to get to this level. I mean, I joined just to play at a tournament 2 years ago. Did pretty well, and just kept at it, and I was lucky enough to be here to be able to play it for everyone here today. Also want to give one quick shout out to my family for helping support me in this. And I haven't told many of them about what I like to do here. I mean, when I'm streaming and stuff, and I don't know if they necessarily understand what I'm doing, but their support is appreciated nonetheless. So thanks everyone, and especially Happy Mother's Day to everyone. So with that said, I don't have anything left to say unless you guys have anything left to say.
Thanks, everyone. Let's do some Final Fantasy IV.
Yeah.
Yeah, let's get to the questionable games.
Questionably awesome.
So thank you guys.
Thank
Can we
you.
hear it one more time for Poorscythe and that amazing run of Final Fantasy? Up next, we do have Final Fantasy IV Interlude, so stay tuned. And there is a bid war for that as well, for the music choice, so make sure you get those donations in. And just as a friendly reminder, RPG Limit Break 2018 is coming to you from Salt Lake City, Utah. We are raising money for NAMI, the National Alliance on Mental Illness, which was formed in 1979 as a